I think still waiting for one more on Zoom, but otherwise we have enough here. So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:01. And first item would be to approve previous month's minutes. I move to approve them. I see no edits needed. So, great. Well, let's take a vote. Is that yes? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So we all approve. Public invited to be heard. I don't believe we have any members, no one on Zoom. So we'll move straight into new business, where we have the children and teen librarian presentation.
Yeah, so let me introduce, this is Claire, our department head for children and teen services. If you haven't met Claire, now you have. And so Claire runs one of the most important departments of this library, clearly, and so I have some slides, but she's going to present a little bit about children and teen, what they do, and all that. And let me, I need to keep an eye on Catherine joining Claire, but let me.
Thank you for giving me the time to visit with you today. Some familiar faces, some new faces to me. So like John said, I'm Claire Studholm. I'm the head of the Children's and Teens Department. I have been with the library for 9.5 years now, which just flew by. We're having lots of fun. I've been the head of the department for 4.5 years now. I started as the teen services librarian. And yeah, I'm here to just talk about generally what we do and preview some of our upcoming things, mostly summer reading. Summer is our busiest time of the year. We often reach, pre-COVID, we reached almost 3,500 kiddos birth through 18 in our summer reading challenge. And we've been steadily growing since COVID. Last year we reached about 1,500 kids. So we're hoping to get back to those 3,000 numbers. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, John, that would be great. So this is most of our team here. We have a vibrant team of 5 librarians, 2 library technicians, and several part-time library technicians, 3 who kind of are on our regular shifts and 1 who subs in mostly in the summer. But this is Kate in the upper left-hand corner there. She's our bilingual children's librarian. She's been here for about a year. Next to her to the right is Fatima. She's one of our library techs. And Kate and Fatima are our 2 dedicated bilingual staff on our team and really focus on serving our Spanish-speaking community, offering lots of different cultural events. Fatima runs our monthly Loteria event. Kate does our bilingual weekly story time. Lots of fun things. And then Stephanie is on the far right there and is a 30-hour library for us. She selects for our junior fiction, does our family story times, is a great programmer. She runs our D&D, our Teen Dungeons and Dragons group, which is probably our most popular teen group. She always claims she's not a D&D like dungeon master, but she totally has become one over the years. And then in the next row is Rebecca, or Becca. She's our newest team member. We're very fortunate that in this new budget of 2023, we were able to add an additional 40-hour librarian to our team. And she is now our full-time dedicated teen librarian. She's also going to be doing, I'm really excited, one of the goals of getting this new position was so we could add even more story times to our schedule and a weekend story time, because that's something we've heard from the community, particularly working parents and working folks, wanting more story times and events on the Saturday and Sunday. So she will, starting June 3rd, be doing our weekly, we're gonna call it weekend family story time. So really excited about that. Kathleen has been at the library for over 30 years. She selects for our junior nonfiction and is this baby storytime expert. She's been doing her baby story time for probably about 30 years. And is also like our Lego librarian. She runs our very popular Lego club, which gets between 100 and 150 folks each time. So yes. And then Juno is next to Kathleen. Juno is a library tech. Her expertise is also a lot in teen programming. She runs our teen volunteer program, which is a robust program. We average 20 teens per session, and we're just about to open up a new session for summer volunteers. We see a lot of need in the community for teens needing service hours, whether it's for school, community service, that kind of thing. And Juno runs that for us very well. She also runs our teen gaming club, which is on our Switch. That's okay. The next picture is just of me. You can see me. My hair sometimes changes colors, but I guess it's kind of the same color. My classes change colors more now. And then in the center is Oliver. He is one of our library tech subs. He came to us in January and is very talented, probably overqualified for the position he's in. He has his MLS and is a published poet and came to us with a lot of experience in teaching poetry to teens and college students. And so he ran a whole series of April Poetry Month programs for us, including Teen Writers Poetry Workshop, our Poetry Cats, which was a passive program where kids and teens could submit poems to our library cat. And I wanted to actually read one of those poems to you because it's actually by one of our teen volunteers, and it's very heartwarming. It's called The Library, a soft place, a safe place, a quiet place, a warm place, the water that quenches that thirst for knowledge, the hearth that fills that ache for community. From 2 to 102, no matter who you are, this place is for you. And it was just so sweet that that came from one of our teen volunteers and just so heartfelt. So we have all these poems. We've got almost 150 poems over the whole month. We have them displayed in our section in our window. If you get a chance, we're going to keep them up until mid-May. But it's really beautiful to see all the poems that were created through that. And then Carly is on the far right. She's been with us for almost 2 years now, is also a sub library tech that works for us quite a bit, and she has a background in youth services. She used to be what you would call a truancy officer for the St. Vrain Valley School District Attendance Office. And she's also the Longmont High School girls swim coach. And she's lovely and helps us on the desk a lot as well. So that's the team. And we also have Kirsten, who doesn't have her photo. Kirsten is another sub for us. And some of you might have known Amy Fontenot. She was our bilingual children's librarian previous to, I guess, 2 librarians ago. And she's also a temp for us who occasionally subs in on the weekends as well. So that's our team. As you all probably know, we're so much more than books. We actively and creatively serve birth through 18 and their grown-ups. And I kind of just, as a general overview, split it into how we serve them through our spaces, our collections, and our programming. So I'm partial, but I really think children and youth services and teen services is the backbone of every library. Often you see people, they experience libraries as children and teen, and then you kind of don't see them again until maybe they have kids again. And then kids kind of bring them into the library again, and they become library users again. Hopefully that gap doesn't necessarily happen all the time, but we find that a lot of caretakers and parents come in being like, oh, the last time I was in the library was when I was a kid. So it's an exciting place to be. We have, I'm sure most of you have hopefully visited and seen our space. During COVID, we took over what was formerly known as the Adult Computer Lab and is now just a teen space, which is really lovely. We have our 4 teen computers. We have a separate services desk in there. With staffing levels, we haven't been able to staff it, but with Becca, our teen librarian, she's spending a lot of her off-desk time in there and kind of getting to know the teams, see when it's busy or not, when we might be able to staff it over summer. And it's just been wonderful. We've been able to have our teen programming in there, and teens actually feel like they have a space. I was working yesterday. There's a regular, they regularly meet every Sunday, this group of teens to study, and they were in yesterday, and they're here like every Sunday hanging out in that space. It's just so great to see. We have like a couch, tables, outlets, that kind of stuff. And we try to do a lot of passive activities, like we had a post-it art wall activity. We have color pencils out, different book displays, that kind of thing in there. And then our general children's area, we have the 4 iPads that are downloaded with educational and early literacy games, our other computers, interactive spaces that we try to focus for sort of social emotional development and community gathering. I really feel like the library is, the community's living room, and I feel like our space really feels like that. We also have an outdoor reading garden, which we lost the tree that was out there when they did the foundation project, and that was a bummer, but we've tried to spruce it up with fake artificial grass rugs that are actually very comfortable. We put toys out there pretty much every day as the weather allows. And then every summer we've been doing a sensory garden, and Stephanie is going to do that again for us. So we have just various buckets with we do 4 or 5 senses. And we did that last year. It was really fun for kids to get to experience that. We have various collections, obviously. We have a large board book toddler collection, an early reader section that I'm pretty proud of. It's really kind of the only leveled area in our section, but it's a really popular section for kids that are just learning to read. We have a level 1, level 2, level 3 area. Like, they have the Bob books, early literacy kits, phonics things. We get a lot of questions from people saying, oh, my kid, how do I teach my kid to read? Or my kid is behind in reading, or where do I start with my child and I want to teach them to read? And so we have this section kind of laid out for different levels, and it's a really nice browsing area. We have various kind of special, sometimes we call them pocket collections. Our Lego books are very popular. Our Disney and Friends are very popular. That includes like all books that are based on TV shows and movies. And it's a really nice browsing section where kids can just kind of find those very popular books. We have a superhero section. Graphic novels are huge, particularly manga. Manga, does everyone know what manga is? Japanese graphic novels. They are getting popular, more and more popular with younger and younger folks that we see. Elementary school students are reading manga. And we have a huge manga section in our teen area, and also some junior manga as well. Manhwa is becoming very popular. It's a Korean graphic novel format. And we have a few of those series as well. We have our junior fiction, nonfiction, and Kate, our bilingual librarian, has really been sprucing up our bilingual and Spanish section. We now have, we're starting to build a collection of Spanish YA young adult novels, and more junior fiction and graphic novels. And she's really merchandised the section very well with face-out displays. She got, with the generous contributions of our friends group, she got new picture book bins. So it's a really inviting space that's browsable and looks more like the rest of our library rather than separate. Our various teen collections, YA is super popular, not just with teens, but we see a lot of adults that are interested as well. So it's a well-circulating collection, fiction, nonfiction, the manga and graphic novels. And then we have our experience bags, similar to adult experience bags. We have first experience bags, which are like your first sleepover, and it includes a stuffed animal of Arthur in his pajamas, and then books about sleepovers and sleeping, and then some a lullaby CD. Then we have junior experience bags, things like anti-racism experience bag, Indigenous authors experience bag, the Great Outdoors experience bag. So lots of different kits and things, and we have teen ones as well. We also have launch pads and playaways. The playaways kind of used to be considered like old school a little bit. They used to be in libraries a fair amount of time ago, and then they kind of disappeared, and now they're coming back. It's a very popular collection. It's basically, since so many people don't have CD players anymore, playaways are audiobooks just on a self-contained player, and I don't know if you've checked out any for your kids or your kid. You look super familiar too. I think you've been in our section before. But you just plug in headphones, and it plays the whole book for you, so you don't need, like Libby is great overdrive for audiobooks, but you need a device, a tablet or a phone, and often, parents won't want to give their kids their whole tablet just so they can listen to an audiobook. So they just give them the play away, and it's literally you hit play, pause, forward, backward, and a volume button. So we've been building that collection up quite a bit. We have launch pads, which they look like iPads, and they're quite a bit focused on early literacy, but they're preloaded, they don't connect to the internet. Each has a different theme and a different age target range for either they'll read a book to you, they'll have math games, science games, that kind of thing. Grown-ups like to check them out when they're traveling or going on road trips or plane trips, because they can give it to their child and not worry about them getting onto the internet or that kind of thing. It's just all there. So that's sort of our collections. Please pause me if you have any questions. I know I'm talking kind of fast. I also don't know how much time I have. Okay.
We'll let you go, and then if there's questions.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. And then programs, our weekly story times, which are sort of our, every library has to have story times. I see story times as the backbone of libraries too, with really kind of community connection and also early literacy, school preparedness, social skills. So we have our weekly story times, which are baby, family, and our Spanish-English bilingual story time. We have a great partnership with Boulder County Mental Health Partners. They have a program called Kids Connect in the Neighborhood. And they've been coming in weekly to offer social emotional circle hours. We're calling them preschool and baby connections. They're similar to story time, but really also address social emotional skills and parenting skills and caregiving skills with the adults in the room as well. They'll often do sensory motor skills, movement stuff, craft activities, and it's all for free to the library too, because it's part of their outreach program. So that's been a really great partnership, and it's led by mental health care, early childhood mental health care workers. They've also been doing parenting classes for us as well. I talked about the addition of a Saturday family story time we're excited about. We have a various kids and tweens programming. We have a weekly tween club, which averages about 10 to 15 kids, and that's been really fun to see. Fatima and Kate run that. And it's definitely friendships have been formed and connections have been formed amongst the kids, and we have a lot of return visitors for that. We have a Science at 6 program that Kathleen and Juno run, like STEM experiments. They did volcanoes once. They're making paper for the next one. They did crystals. We have movement classes with a community partner named Anima Arts. She is a body movement dance instructor that specializes in early childhood, and her classes are very cool. We have author visits, our Loteria craft programs. We still do a fair amount of take-home craft kits that were really popular when we were more closed down due to COVID stuff, but we still put those out often in our area. DEAR is also very popular, stands for Dogs Enjoy Afternoon Reading, where trained therapy dogs come and kids can read with them. And then our various teen programming, Dungeons and Dragons, our gaming club, which happens on our Nintendo Switch, our volunteer program, writing workshops, our club, author visits. We had a great author visit with Stacey Lee, who is a primarily historical fiction YA author, Chinese American, who writes a lot about the Chinese American experience throughout history. She's written about the Titanic. Her book, The Downstairs Girl, is one of my favorite books of hers. But she came in, also funded by the Friends as well, and did a teen writers workshop and a conversation with us, and she was really great, connected with a lot of folks. And then the big thing is our summer reading program is happening very soon. I wanted to pass this around. It hasn't been officially released yet, but this is our special sneak preview. It's our summer reading challenge, which is a summer reading bingo, which we've been doing an iteration of this for the past 3 or 4 years. We found in years past our program was a little bit too complicated and threw up a lot of barriers for folks. You had to register, you had to check in 2 or 3 times over the summer. So this, you don't even have to register, you just have to pick up your board, turn in your board by July 31st, and then you get a free book prize. If you do the whole bingo board, you get entered into a grand prize drawing for some special larger item prizes. We also try to make it so it's not just reading. Kids can choose if they want to do reading for each square or each circle, but there are also different challenges and activities like read outside or tell a friend about summer reading. So we could, have people advertise the library through the program. So it's kind of fun to come up with those different activities there. And that starts May 25th. And then last day of school, we're having a pool party at Sunset Pool.
It was you.
Yeah.
I'm like, someone was asking about that day. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was like, I think there's a pool party happening. But I
That's
don't know
us,
who's
from like
putting it
5:30 to 7:30.
on. Oh man.
Yes. So we'll be there. Librarians will be there. We won't necessarily be swimming. I don't know. But we will. That's when we're releasing the bingo boards for folks and our June and July calendar. All of our June and July events, which we have a ton of over the summer, are up currently on our website too. So if you want to check those out, but the paper calendar will be out at the end of May. So that's kind of who we are and sort of what we do in a nutshell.
Thank you, Claire.
Yeah.
That was great. And
Yeah.
so, out of all that, any questions?
Yeah.
Is there a theme for the summer reading club this year?
Yeah, so the CSLP, which I think is like something summer learning program, like the Colorado Summer Learning Program, and then there's a national one, does come up with a theme every year. The theme this year is all together now. We used to really closely follow the theme with helping decide what programming to offer. We would sort of brand it on our challenge, but several years ago, I decided for us to not be beholden to the theme. So we kind of we have it in the back of our minds, and a lot of the performers that kind of are on the library circuit tailor their stuff to that theme. But I thought it would be better to have the library kind of front and center on it, because some people don't understand why do you have this random theme? And I was like, it's just library summer reading. So we don't really play on the theme that much, but we still get free resources. I have some posters and bookmarks that I can hand out with that theme, with the summer reading national group still. And I still go to some of their meetups where you can get ideas for programming and stuff. We just don't really brand the theme. But yeah, that is something. And yeah, please email me. Oh yeah.
I had a question.
Yeah.
It kind of struck me as you were going through your colleagues, pictures of your colleagues and that. One of the things that the feasibility study talked about was the current library qualifications and comparing them against the qualifications of the people that work at the library compared to other libraries.
Mm-hmm.
And do you all have a program when you ask people to volunteer or hire them all as to what the minimum qualifications are now? Is there a process where that gets upgraded, or are you comfortable with the present qualification criteria for the people that you'd put in children and teens, for instance?
I mean, we go through a vetting process, like background and stuff like that. I don't know if you mean beyond that, but because the volunteers, at least in CATS, we call children's CATS.
Children's
Yeah,
Teen Services.
Yeah,
all the cats.
and this is probably
Yeah.
not correctly phrased for volunteers, because volunteers are volunteers, but
Right.
for staff and future management or whatever for the library, the concern was expressed as, well, our library compared to other libraries doesn't have as many people with advanced degrees, say.
Oh, like the Masters in Library Science,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Right, so I don't know how many of those people you highlighted were volunteers or people that work for you.
Those were all staff.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
are those staff, so when you go through and look for new staff people now,
Mm-hmm.
do you have criteria that you're trying to target for new entrance into the management pool, so to speak?
I mean, it depends where we're hiring for. I mean, if we're talking specifically in children and teen, I mean, it gets down into specifics of the position. So we just hired the teen librarian. So they had to have an extensive background in collection management in teen YA collections, as well as teen programming. And for me, just being able to deal with teens in general. You know, so I mean, but those skill sets could come with being a degreed librarian or not, but they're absolutely necessary. When it gets into story time, you can learn story time in an MLIS program, but you can be trained on it as well. But no one's going to be put into a story time without the proper training. It's a skill set that is learned. You can't just go in there and feel like, I love kids, I would love to read a story. There's actually a whole skill set behind delivering a story time. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what I'm shooting for here, because, you know, I recognize that there's experience levels and there's quality of interaction and engagement between human beings and children and teens and stuff like that transcend education.
Mm-hmm.
But I just recognize that when the feasibility study was put together, somebody must have thought that was important, that those higher educational and disciplinary criteria were important to the future of the organization. So as you go through this, does that get disregarded, or is that somehow filtered in someplace?
It is filtered in, and it's definitely considered. And so the feasibility is, part of that is looking at Longmont, our population, and comparing ourselves to other libraries and the number of, basically, in that sense, degreed librarians that are on staff versus not. And those lines are getting a little blurred these days, to be frank about it, because you can be a degreed librarian, but it doesn't mean you can do story time. Right. So it's kind of a blend of both. But when we think about the study and the number of degreed librarians or otherwise comparatively qualified to do the same job, we're in a lower percentile compared to other libraries that serve a population of 100,000 people.
So I agree that that's what the study says. So is it your all opinion that that's probably an area where the study pointed to that's probably overemphasized, or that's something that's important and still needs to be thought about?
I think it's important and needs to be thought about, but if I think about the study as a whole, I think there's other aspects in there that to me are higher priority. Primarily where in Longmont we provide library services. I mean, we have one location and the city's expanded well out, and there's so many people that don't get library services because they're not coming here. So to me, it is an aspect, but I don't know, when I think about staffing levels, I think it'll come together. I mean, if we have a new location, then we're going to consider what that study shows, and when we think about staffing a new location, what's the makeup of that location, and how many people should we be bringing in that are professional librarians and as opposed to support staff?
Okay, I mean, I recall as we were standing up there talking to council from time to time, and we had our laundry list of things that we said the feasibility study has identified that we need to create funding to change.
Yep.
That was one of the things that was on the laundry list, is that you're not treating your people well enough, or you're not getting in.
So it might be more that professional level, like our level of professional librarians, like that position is much
For
lower.
some reason or another has not flourished
It's true.
under the present
Like it was
way
really
of
difficult
funding
to
the
get a new
library.
librarian
It's
position.
true.
And so
Yeah.
if that's, is that still true, and is
Yes.
that part of the grand plan to grow?
It is. In general, that's accurate. And if we're understaffed at the moment, but we're outspaced. We can't bring in more staff.
No, I understand.
So that's,
No, I understand.
so yeah, so it's yes is the answer.
Okay.
So this is just following up on Mark, I guess, question, I'm curious now. So your librarian positions sometimes require an MLS and sometimes would not, am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so
Which,
actually,
which by the way, I am very much in favor of. Speaking of
I don't know if you
as a
want to answer
librarian.
that, or I could give my perspective of what has changed and not.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's interesting because this is also a wider debate that's going on in the library world.
Yeah.
And when I first started working here 9 years ago, they were very strict in you had to have an MLIS to be considered for a librarian 1. Like we have a librarian 1, which is non-manager librarians, and then I'm like a librarian 2 because I'm the head of the department. But to be qualify for a library 1 position, you had to have that minimum degree and X amount of years of service. And then it's become, and I actually was an advocate for that to become a little less strict for various reasons. So I'm also part of the citywide equity team, and it is actually a huge equity issue and barrier requiring all of these higher education degrees for even our internal staff to be able to move up. So someone that's been in the library for 20 years and can do the job has the experience level even of more so than someone that maybe just got their MLIS and has no actual experience in the library couldn't apply for a librarian position. So they max out, kind of things. And there's also, getting diverse candidates and Spanish-speaking candidates into a librarian position is a lot harder because the degree is not as accessible to folks. So there's a lot of equity issues within like who has access to the degree or not. And so there's obviously I still believe in the degree. I have my MLIS. Most of our librarians have their MLIS, some of them don't, but to me it's really about experience as well. So it's like a huge debate right now, but I've seen the city overall is endeavoring to become actually a little bit more flexible with having those hard requirements of minimum degrees, and the library has been a part of that. Now we have, at least for the positions that I've hired for professional level, it's an MLIS degree is preferred, but not required, but a level of X amount of years of experience is required.
I
Anything
don't,
to add?
no, I don't think I could have said that any better, actually.
But it's definitely like it's a balance. It's something I think about a lot, particularly in hiring. And yeah.
Great, thanks. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Well, this isn't a question, but on another note, I have to tell you how much I love those little touches in the children's area. Like the little area where they have like the zipper and the brushes. Like I love those small touches. I think y'all do that so well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Try to make it a space that like kids can kind of be interested in stuff because people do like coming with their kids and having their kids being able to do something and hang out for a bit. So having those sensory things is nice.
It's also the only children's library I've ever been in that has a lowrider in it.
Yes.
Which my daughter loves. That
Oh,
is
everyone
train.
loves it.
It's a
Yes.
toss-up.
Yeah, and the train is a whole nother can of worms that we love, but the train breaks down all the time. But we love it. It just got fixed yesterday, so it's back up and running. But feel free to reach out to me. I love talking about libraries and
Yeah,
stuff.
I put Claire put her email in the slide, but I can get the slides to you or Claire's contact info for that matter.
Yeah.
If you ever want to follow up questions.
Yeah, big or little questions. I love chatting. Yeah, I could talk about libraries all night.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
thank you.
Claire.
Yeah, thank you for all that you all do with your time on the board. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Should I?
You can
Am I
stay
excused?
or you can go. I mean, this is your night to work. I
I do.
imagine you probably need to go.
I should
but-
get back on the desk with Juno to help
Yeah.
close down the
Yeah,
library.
no,
but
we're good.
have a good
Thanks,
rest of your
Claire.
meeting. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I'm gonna do this because it's private, not released yet. Thank you.
Well, thanks, John, for arranging the staff meetings.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's so useful for us to learn what we're doing, and of course, just so impressive. Especially when I think about the budgetary constraints that department's been under for so long. Okay, next order, any other comments or questions? Now that Claire's left. Any other comments? Okay, let's move on then. The next order of new business is board member interviews. So we are gonna have, technically we're gonna have two positions actually open. Catherine's has, and Catherine, please feel free to jump in. Catherine's there was a confusion with Catherine's, so it's actually set to expire in June. But it was a surprise to learn that, but I think you were able to work out next steps for you at least. Which means, all that to say is that we're gonna have interviews, that we're gonna need at least one board member to attend. And Mark, my understanding is your last meeting is June.
That's my
So that-
understanding.
Hopefully that is correct. So really what that puts us on is the three of us. And so John, I'm not sure if you have this information. I don't know if we come up with a date that would work for one of us, or if the city gives us a few, or do you have a time frame?
So the board would come up with a date to schedule interviews with the two candidates. I know, sorry, Catherine. I mean, it's no one in this room arranged it this way. Anyway, so the board would come up with that hopefully within the next couple weeks or so, to choose a date to do these interviews. There is one new member that applied, in addition to Catherine. So, and then once that's done, then the board then recommends that to council, and then they do their own interviewing. That's the way I understand it. So you can come up with your own date. I think the city council does theirs. I have that date. I feel like it's later this month. It might be later this month, so you probably want to do it in the next couple of weeks.
And then Jen, do you know if they need to be in person or can they be remote for us?
I think it can be either.
Okay, and then do you know if they need to be during working hours or if they could be in the evenings?
I don't think there's any
okay.
rule about that.
No, the only restriction is they do need to be recorded. So
Okay.
they're
Yeah, so if we do it on
Yeah.
like remote with Zoom or whatever, we'll just make sure to record it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am out of town, just I guess talking to y'all here. I'm basically out of town from tomorrow through the 19th. I'm here the 15th, but that's a really tight day for me. I could make that day work if need be. Otherwise, I am very open the week of the 22nd. I could do an in-person one anytime during the day, Tuesday or Friday that week. Otherwise, I could Zoom. We're done with this semester, so I'm very flexible. And I'm not sure, I think we just need at least one person. I think it'd be great if we could have more. So I don't know if any time that week would work for one or both of y'all.
I'm out of state for most of that week, but I could do Friday.
Okay.
Or hypothetically Thursdays here, but Friday would work.
Friday would work.
The 26th?
Yeah, the 26th.
What about you on Friday, the 26th?
I'm wide open on the 26th. I can be pretty flexible on the other days as well. I've got some things going. It's the pool party.
Oh, right.
I can't miss that, but there are time slots every day that would work.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, well, the 26th would be ideal. Wait, hold on. Hold on, I'm out of town that day. I could do the afternoon of the 26th. I'll be by internet by the afternoon.
Don't do the 26th.
Okay.
Because then Catherine can't interview.
Right.
And technically that has to happen, so.
Oh, thanks, Catherine. Okay, let's then look at the.
Well, that's true. We could do, okay, sorry, I'm reading her chat. So, it could be on 2 different days. That's true.
Catherine, what's your availability on the 25th, on that Thursday?
This is why it was a challenging situation for me, because I'm just very, very booked up through Memorial Day.
Okay.
I come back from a trip late on Memorial Day, so the 30th or 31st would be. Otherwise, I could try and do it at school if we do it at Zoom before I leave on my trip.
I would like to, the 31st would work well for me as well, and I feel like this has not been the easiest for your convenience, this process. So I'd like to try for the 31st, and then, if council needs us earlier, then we can speed that up. But
That's the only unknown. I'm not
Okay.
sure. You don't know offhand, Tracy, do you?
I'm looking it up. I remember seeing something about June, and I don't know if that's like the deadline or if that's when then they need to have them. So
Okay.
real quick, but I don't remember.
When I was going back and forth with, I believe it was Tracy about this whole thing, I think she said that I wouldn't have to worry about being interviewed until June, which is why I was like,
gotcha.
fine, I'll do it. But I'm pretty, like I said, really booked up through the end of May.
Well, I was just gonna say, the last time around, Jeff was organizing the available dates based on what he was getting from council.
Right.
So if council said they needed to make a decision June 10th,
Right, that's what I was.
then he would back that up and then
Yeah.
propose slots to bring people in, which is, I think, probably the message that came back. How did you hear it? Was it through the city clerk or was it through Jeff? The date
About
your
this situation?
No, your interview date. Do you remember?
I got an email that said, here's the date,
Be there.
be there or be square.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so-
know at least one of them was virtual.
Because he was there. You were there,
So
right?
I had two virtual.
Ours was in person.
But
did
you
come
were
in
part
in
of it.
person.
Jeff was part of it.
Yeah.
Scott was part of it. I
Yeah.
was part of it.
But then the council maybe was virtual.
The council was virtual, and then there was another, it might have been like a screening, like a pre-interview? Am I
Check your
inflating
criminal
details?
record. Or
I don't know.
There was
Quite a
something
vetting
where it was
process.
just Jeff and Scott. But that might have been after the fact. Not Scott? Jeff and one other person. Anybody wanna?
After the fact of what?
It might have been after the interview.
Okay, that was
When it
Jeff
was
and
more
me.
like an onboarding.
That was Jeff
That
and
was
me.
Jeff and you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was when it was done, just to have like a welcome to the board. This is, yeah, that
Any
was informal.
questions?
Yeah, yeah. That doesn't count
Okay,
in this sense.
I apologize.
No, but yeah, I mean, you
Mine's
can obviously
straight
do it the way you want to do it, but the last time it occurred, that's how it came down.
Oh, I got an email from Tracy with an interview slot in November, so that's how I first heard about it.
Well, let's then, it sounds like we can maybe put forth these dates, I guess, to Jeff, and then, if I'm seeing that correctly,
Just put them to Tracy.
to Tracy.
So I'm seeing the memo, it's dated June 2nd. I'm assuming that the memo needs to be sent to council by that date.
Okay.
So I think we have a couple days
So we have a
after.
couple
Oh, so that's fine.
Okay, so then that would work on the 31st for Catherine's, and even if that's just me, I think that, that's important. Hey,
Hi, Susan.
And then it sounds like, Tracy, the other date that may work for myself and some others is the 25th. I am free I'm completely flexible that day except for 1:32. So I don't know if there are certain time spots that would work best on that day for y'all. 25th, that Thursday.
Probably before 5.
Wait,
I'm the opposite, the later in the day the better, but I could always if it's Teams, I can try and come in if I can. So.
okay.
Well, but if you have anytime before
Before 5.
I mean, you have 2.
Yeah, which would be great.
And I'm available
okay.
too, because I want to be.
You there?
I
Okay.
think I can be, from what I understand.
Yeah. I would like to be able to.
Don't laugh too
I would like to be able to offer the candidate multiple, I think that's a lot to ask for a specific time frame during a workday for a volunteer
Yeah.
position. So if we could just offer them during that 9 to 5 that day. Actually, if we could say 9 to 1 or 2 to 5 that day, I think that we can maybe work something out from there.
The other particular from the previous time we did this was the city provided the questions. So they gave us a format. Here are the questions you're supposed to ask every candidate. They were identical. Or almost identical.
Almost, 'cause you guys
we
added
screw,
some.
we'd screw stuff up, but. And then, we go around the table and the same person would ask the same question or something like that, so. I just throw that out as background. You do it the way you want to do it.
Yeah, that would be great if we could get that, a preset of questions from the city. It's fine with me. I mean, I think we could easily come up with some that would work, but I don't see why not to use theirs if they have them. Does that sound like a good plan to everyone moving forward on that? We'll shoot for the 25th and then for the 31st as well. Okay. Now let me put that on my calendar. Make a note to put that on my calendar.
Do you know who the other candidate is?
Yes. But I just don't have, now you're asking me to look for,
Yeah, that's
Oh,
okay
I
if you
sent-
don't have it.
but I
That's
did,
fine.
I sent it to Cynthia though.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was like public information where we could share a name right now or maybe just, but we do have one. And it looked like a really great resume and enthusiastic person.
I think the board can see it,
Okay,
right, because they're interviewing, I mean, I don't know technically.
yeah.
So where Catherine's weirdness falls in, but I don't have
Did I
an issue.
participate in the other interview? No, I'm busy
No,
that day.
because it was Mark and Scott were able to and you and I were not for like the last cycle, I remember.
Yeah,
Okay,
but you can see their application and resume, I don't think there's an issue with that.
okay, great. I can forward that then as well if y'all are, that's of interest. Okay, any other comments on that agenda item before we move on? Okay, thank you for helping us get this set up. Okay, next we're gonna move into old business. And it's so exciting, I have copies of the bylaws. Sorry, Catherine, I don't I can send you this electronically.
I'll survive.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting. We had talked about this a couple of months ago. I wanted to pick this back up. I was reading through them and I don't think that we need to like group edit as we did the last time because I only see a very few number of changes. So my thought was to share the changes I see and then if you all would like another month, I don't see this as time sensitive. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. But if you all have other changes, maybe take a look at this over the next month and then we can send that off next month. I'll tell you all the 3 changes that I see that I think need to be made is to cross out section 3, duties of the secretary. And I think that we could either update it to say, and I'm so sorry, Tracy, I'm forgetting your position title.
But that's right, administrative assistant.
Okay, we could update it to administrative assistant, or we could probably take it all out because of section 4 does say the board reserves the right to appoint members to other specialized roles as it deems fit. So my preference would be to, I guess, take it out in case we do need to change that later. We wouldn't have to do another update of the bylaws. And then 2 other smaller ones, I'd like to change the wording of chairman to chair, if that works for y'all. And then Article 3, Section 3, I'm wondering if we want to say that quorum is a majority instead of 3 members. And that is because I'm thinking of the time where there was like you, Catherine, and I for a month on the board, or 2 months. And if we ever are missing 1 or 2 members, if that gives us more flexibility to change that to a majority. Those are the changes I propose. I don't think we need to vote on that right now, but I'm just curious if there's feedback on that. If there are other changes y'all can see, and then just to restate, I guess my thought is that I will bring a draft for those changes next time, and if there's nothing else that anyone sees in the meantime, we can send it off.
The quorum thing may be a city.
Okay, that's what
I
I
was
was
wondering about the quorum, I don't know if you can just say majority.
I think
It's 3.
it's part of our charter.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And then, Catherine, I think the electronic versions of these went out with the April email from Tracy, so you could probably pull it up there.
Yeah, I was trying to find it.
of the bylaws?
I thought it was sent out last month.
Yeah, I'll send it to her.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I also was gonna make the change to the chairman, so
Okay.
that sounds good to me, so.
And then do y'all think just taking out section 3 sounds like the best way to do it? Or is there a reason to just change that language to say administrative assistant will act as secretary?
I think it'd be better just to strike it.
Yeah. Right. Any other comments right now on this? Okay, I'll bring a copy next time with those changes made, and then that way, if somebody comes up with something in the next month, we can update from there.
Yeah, and I don't see it in what Tracy sent with the agenda, but I could be missing it, so I'll keep looking.
I think she is trying to find it to just send it to you.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, Catherine. It's not from this last, email to everyone. It's from at least a month ago. But I'll
Yeah,
send
it might have been the last board meeting packet.
Okay, any other comments or questions before we move on to the next agenda item? Great. Follow-up of the Cultural and Recreation Initiative. First of all, thank you so much, Mark and Jamie, for being at the City Council meeting last month. I got sick that morning and was not able to make it, obviously. So I want to be transparent. I actually have not watched the recording. I've been really slammed at work, so I've not had a chance to watch the recording of that meeting. My understanding from reading newspaper articles is that a branch will be moving forward on the November ballot. But Susie, I'm wondering if this issue is something that you could share any updates on from council, if there are any.
So I think the only one that really shifted as far as, our original plan was the museum.
Mm-hmm.
And the museum, so I also sit on that board by chance. And I'm wearing my mask because I was at our teacher appreciation dinner a couple weeks ago, and it was like a major super spreader event. So I'm for you all. But anyway, so they've decided to move with a capital improvement initiative on their own to fundraise those dollars for their expansion of the Children's Museum. We have supported the idea of having the branch library, everything that the library would need that was on the original presentation. We want to move forward with that. So,
All right.
So I think really now it's just the messaging, getting exact dollars, finding out what the community is most anxious about, and trying to allay those fears. So we're working on that. So, and then I don't know if you have anything more to add or.
No, I mean, that was, my takeaway from what I heard all of you saying was library, absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
The arts and entertainment, and
Yes.
then the way I share it with staff is some form of recreation, because the YMCA came in with this whole thing.
Yes, we did. Oh, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Yes, so there was an opportunity. So one of the things when we were looking at that dome idea, how everything kind of came together, it just kind of meshed, and I think other entities, it sparked ideas for them as we were discussing, what to do with the stadium dollars. These ideas came in of, we could do this, and so we're looking at the idea of a land swap between where Centennial Pool is, Centennial Park, and where the YMCA. So if we did this land swap, that the YMCA could actually fund a recreational type facility with adjacent homes, apartments on top, that they might be able to fund, and it would help reduce the cost as far as any kind of Centennial Pool upgrade, and it would still give the community what they need, what we need.
That sounds, I'm so glad to hear about the library.
Yes, yeah.
And that sounds good on.
And I think even through the survey, that was the most popular as far as what the community felt is a necessity.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add too, which I was pleased to hear, because after Mark shared what you all wrote, but a couple or so council members echoed the whole preferred level of service
Yes,
aspect,
yeah.
which is really,
Mhm.
I think, what the board and
Yeah.
and frankly what I'm getting at, what we're all getting at, which is a branch is great, but we need to function at this preferred
At
level of
this preferred
service.
level of service.
And so to hear that kind of
Uh-huh.
spoken back, I thought was encouraging, frankly.
Yes,
So-
and I mean, as far as for me and my vocabulary and what I convey to the rest of the council, I always use preferred level. And I've had meetings with the mayor and explaining what that means, what that looks like, and what the board is really wanting to see happen in our community, so. So even if, not just on council, but on meetings, sidebar conversations as well.
My takeaway was the direction from council to the city was to come back with numbers at the
Uh-huh.
preferred level.
Uh-huh,
So that should be the values to get baked into
Yes,
other
yeah.
initiative.
Right.
Once the language and all that is put together, which I think is great.
Mhm.
And really.
And I think a lot of that stemmed from concerns from the community. I think just not knowing how much of they would have to pay each
Right.
to see this through. So, we wanted to have that clarity to ensure that it passes.
Well, I personally find this all very encouraging and great to hear, but I'd like to open up the discussion a little bit if anyone else on the board has comments or questions on this right now.
I'm just glad that it's moving forward.
Now I'll be really excited to see how it all comes together. And if, I'm just curious what role the board can play in that process, or if we can openly go out and advocate and canvass and put up signs for all this, or what are the boundaries, for us?
I mean, I would think so, not necessarily as representing a board, but as residents of
That's
Longmont. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, anybody on here can.
Yeah.
You can't collectively say we're doing this as the library board, but, we are advocating for this to come through and here are the reasons why. So really, and it's something that I've asked of the city is to bring me back some talking points, messaging that would allow people to go out there. I'm union vice president, so it's all about organizing and messaging and setting up those campaigns to get things passed. So,
Yes. What about the Friends? The Friends of the Library?
The Friends,
Can.
I can.
yeah,
I don't know.
the Friends are a 501c3.
So I have a question about that now because I have found conflicting information in different places.
Yes.
I don't think they're a C3, or that is, I haven't seen that anywhere. I think they're a different organization, potentially a C6. You remember us talking about it at the last
Yes.
Friends meeting?
Yeah, and someone looked up the Friends bylaws, but it just said you can't campaign for an individual, is the way I understood it.
Yeah, I know they can't politically endorse
A
Right.
candidate.
A
But
candidate.
they could
Candidate.
campaign, my understanding, because I
Or-
looked up what that designation was with
Yes.
the IRS.
Uh-huh.
And you could campaign for causes and initiatives that are congruent with your mission,
Okay.
which this
That
would
makes a lot of
certainly
sense.
seem to fit that bill.
Uh-huh. Definitely could.
Even if the Friends organizational management didn't want to do that, they have lists of members
Absolutely.
that would probably be receptive to receiving information on what's going on and would be
They have a
aggressive in
platform.
terms. Yeah, they can still be the platform even if the leadership isn't all on board politically.
Catherine, you just wrote 501c6. Is that what the Friends is? Or you're just, I wasn't sure what you're.
That's what they have on their website, I just looked it up.
Okay.
So
that's
it's
what I was-
listed as a business league, under the IRS. So it is slightly different, but it's still a nonprofit. It's a variation on the nonprofit theme.
Nonprofit, okay.
Right.
So yeah,
I mean, so far my very high level general understanding, and some of which has even come from the city attorney, is that the Friends organization certainly can campaign but boards and commissions couldn't, at least not as a board member.
And I understand campaign to be, we could not use this time to like organize anything or organize ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
We cannot campaign like
Right.
wearing any sort of, like wearing the metaphorical hat of a library board member.
Yeah.
Am I missing something with that?
No, that sounds right.
Okay.
Can we as a board say that we're in favor of this tax though? I mean, we are.
I don't,
That seems like all we've been advocating for the past 2 years.
so my guess is, Catherine, and I could be completely off on this, is that's been in our role as an advisory board. So that we have been sharing our advice with council that this level of funding is necessary and here are the ways we support doing so. But now that it's ballot, I
Well,
think that
you-
changes our
You can't
role.
tell somebody
You,
that.
you don't
Yeah.
think that you couldn't knock on a door and say, as part of your argument, oh, by the way, the Longmont Advisory Board unanimously supported this initiative.
I think you definitely could. I don't think I could say though, as a member of the board, I think.
Or, oh,
That's
by
a
the
good
way, I happen to be a member, but I'm here as a private citizen.
Yeah, I mean, that's just sharing public record information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can't, for example, write an op-ed saying, as a board, we recommend
Yeah.
that
Correct.
people
Right.
vote for this.
Yeah.
So,
She said can?
Cannot.
Cannot.
so I got, Catherine, I'll email this to you, but this came from the city attorney because I was asking him this very
Oh,
question.
good.
Oh, this is great.
Thank you.
Great.
Of what can, and this is written from, kind of sort of towards city employees, but he said it's applicable to boards and commissions.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't read through it all because I just got it, but it's something that maybe can be discussed next month just because there's a lot here. But I think it would be an opportunity, and I'll email it to you, Catherine, what he sent, so that you can see it. And particularly with, it'd be good to have some other legal eyes on it too. But just, it seems to me that overall, and what some of you are saying here is like you can't, just like what Catherine said, like you can't write a piece as a board member to say like vote yes on 6 or whatever. You know, as a citizen you can, for sure, but
Or you
That's-
could write it and give it to your spouse or significant other and
Yeah,
have them submit
yeah,
it.
but you can't be, so there seem to be some limitations
Uh-huh.
in that sense, which are very much the limitations I have. So I cannot do anything on work time. On not on work time, I can deal with that a little bit differently, but I still
Do you
have
have
to
an
be
extra
careful.
copy of that? Or?
You can have this one,
Oh, thank you.
sorry.
So Susie, when this kind of came up at council, there seemed to be an impression amongst council, my interpretation,
Uh-huh.
that the advisory boards, just not us, but the other advisory boards could be vehicles to help advocate their prospective interests somehow to the community. I mean, that was my perception of the council's perception. Maybe that's incorrect, but
Yeah.
how did you interpret all that? Or do you even remember that being kicked around?
I don't recall, and I apologize. That didn't stand out to me as that necessarily being, what they were trying to highlight.
Yeah, a couple were thinking, well, it can't just be us.
No.
It can't just be council. We need to
No.
get like the community involved, and
Yes,
we
and I
want to
think it's
get the
really each of
advisory
you
board.
could, think about your own networks. Think about the people that you are in contact with. So it's, the 4 of you, 5 of you, then you're sending it out to your networks. And then from there, them sending out to their networks. That was my impression. It was like really just, knowing, the precise information and being involved in the feasibility study and the other, the presentations and all the information that we received from city staff, you are all aware of this information. So being able to disseminate, you all being able to disseminate your knowledge out to your networks and ensure that, because I think something that happened with the 2019 initiative and why it failed was that there was a lot of misconception. And I think, really, I probably would have voted no for it had I not been running that year and actually sitting in the city council meetings and hearing what was really involved in that. So I think just helping kind of debunk myths.
Yes.
So I thought that that's what the message was. Now, I could have misinterpreted that.
So you raise an excellent point, Susie, because I think if there's any ambiguity about whether you should or shouldn't be doing something, there's a difference between, or at least I'm distinguishing between building awareness, educating, informing the community, just the objective facts that can be verified in any number of places, and advocacy, telling somebody what they should do or how they should vote, right? So if that feels a little murky, there's absolutely a need in this community for more education, communication, and just awareness building, information about, hey, did you know? Some of the stuff that went into the, that came up with the feasibility study. Now, like, I come to this library several times a week and have since I moved here. And it's like this sparkly Shangri-La for me and my family.
Yeah.
And that council meeting where the results of the feasibility study were shared, that was like the first time that I was really seeing facts about the challenges and the struggles.
Yeah.
I mean, as a new resident to
Yeah.
Longmont, I know some of these things have been going on for a while, but so that was because I happened to be there. So how, you could just take little chunks of that and find ways of getting that word out. And then I don't think that you're really compromised regardless of what your role is on the board or,
You're just
right? Because I'm just
educating
sharing
individuals.
facts you
Yes.
could look up.
Yes. And debunking myths.
And debunking myths. And hey, and I'm going to end the conversation by saying there is an initiative on the ballot.
Yeah.
You should check it out.
Yeah.
You should read it.
Yeah. And I think that doesn't cross that line.
But it's still really important. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like going soft either, because it's still a real need.
So it sounds like that what Mark is saying, what Jamie's saying, but we're all, what I'm hearing is pretty consistent from all of us right now. And I'm hoping that reading this, thank you, John, will provide further clarity and any other questions. I'm wondering, and we can talk a little bit about this if you want under reports, but I'm wondering if you, as the Friends liaison, would be willing to keep this group up to date on any initiatives the Friends are taking, since they have more opportunity or less constraints.
I will. I think that I sensed some real interest when I brought it up at the last meeting, but I do not think that there is a uniformity of opinion.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I think it was great though that you were able to bring some of the members to the council meeting, because there were a number of interest groups there, and they had their own advocates in the audience and that, and to be able to indicate that, hey, it's not just one person, we've got a group here, we're interested, and I don't know whether it changed people's opinions or not, but I think it probably made it easier to embrace the opinion that you had going in.
Thank you for saying that, because I felt like I really botched that. That was
No,
not
I
the
think
turnout that I was.
Well, I mean, people
Going
have lives to live.
No, I was extremely grateful to the folks who showed up, and I know how passionate and dedicated they are. They didn't realize they had to sign up to speak.
Well, they didn't have to sign up. They didn't have to speak. All they had to be was there.
Okay.
All they had to be, if there was more of them, I'd have had them stand up. But
Yeah.
but after the people from Parks and Recs had probably 20 people there, so
Yeah. They mounted up.
I didn't want to see us do a competition. Well, they've got more, so they're more deserving. So.
No, I did feel really good that we had a,
I think it was great. I think it was great you showed up. It was great they showed up. So.
thanks for not being mad at me. For not.
It is hard to get people to show up. You know, I do union organizing, and we had our Cinco de Mayo booth, and I'm, you know, of our 1,400 members, I was like lucky to get 10. And I was there all day.
Break down?
What's that?
Did you have anyone to help you break down?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to make sure I have
leave.
people at the beginning and at the end. I can sit there all day long.
Right.
Just help me put it, because there's a lot of stuff. But it is challenging, so, you know, being able to turn up a few, that's great.
Well, it sounds like some positive steps right now on this, and that, hopefully we'll have a little more clarity in terms of what we can or cannot do after reading this.
And it seems to me that the library is a natural issue for the teachers' organization to advocate for. So I'm just
Well, and you know what?
just saying
I
that.
can say that St. Frank Valley Education Association did endorse the performing arts, you know, being on the ballot. So if y'all want to come present, or somebody.
Yeah, I mean, as an individual citizen.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think we had Elliot Moore, he came in and spoke to that and the importance of getting that on the ballot. Shoot, I can just say, hey.
I'd be
Let's
ready.
do it.
It was wonderful.
Let's
It
do
was
it.
so powerful listening to some of the personal stories that were shared. I mean, like, that's one of the most powerful tools you can have. And I'm not putting this on anything or anyone, but, you know, I found myself sitting there and listening to these different testimonies and thinking, you know, well, this is all wonderful stuff. This is great. You know, like, this sounds like a wonderful thing for Longmont. I was feeling like, it's not an either or situation.
No,
either,
that's
right.
Yes.
So when I felt my own emotions going toward like feeling competitive, feeling, oh, they brought 20 people and I brought 3 people and council's going to listen to them more than it. You know, it wasn't a either or situation.
Yes.
So. Yeah.
And I think it's less about swaying council and it's more about just engaging the community and getting them on board to realize it. Because I listened to people and I was like, well, I enjoy the library, it's all right. I'm like, well, really? I mean, let's look at these pieces and what we could have and look at the growth, look at the needs. Are we meeting those needs? And are we really bringing this library into the 21st century?
I'm just saying maybe that should be part of the messaging.
Yes.
Is to remind folks like, you want to pay for it, you can have all these things.
I wish everyone could just hear what Claire just presented to us.
Oh, I know.
Okay, well, any other on this, and I hope that if any questions come up from reading this.
I just have a timeline question, and Suzie, I don't know if you actually know this, but when will the actual wording be hammered out? Do you know?
I do not. I can ask.
Jeff might know better, but
Has it made an agenda yet?
You know what? I typically get the agendas unless there's something big that we'll let. I feel like with that particular one, Harold will let us know a few weeks in advance. But typically, we'll get the agenda on Thursday, and then I know what we'll be discussing on Tuesday.
Yeah, because just as a last comment from me, one of the things that as a group we've tried to emphasize from time to time is the importance of linking the funding to the library. And I am personally interested in seeing how the language comes out,
Mm-hmm.
because if the tax is dedicated for the library, I think that's a good thing. If it's just an increase in the general fund, that's not as exciting
will
as
sunset,
the
yeah.
latter. So.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for saying that, Mark. That's exactly where my mind was going, was, again, are we gonna actually see a certain percentage of X tax dedicated to the library's permanent funding?
So and typically that would come back to us in a general business item. You know, this upcoming Tuesday, we're not discussing that. We're discussing the fair campaign practices.
Is that something you feel like you can advocate for, Susie? I don't know
What
how
to
that
get,
process works.
I'm sorry, to advocate for the type of funding?
Yeah, for a fixed percentage of the tax being allocated for the library in order to meet the preferred level of service.
I mean, I think, you know, I can definitely, and I've had conversations with Jim Golden and Harold, but really it's up to, you know, it's determined by them what is sustainable, what is feasible. But, and given the results of the survey, I think with the library being the highest favorable, one of the conversations I had with Harold was, you know, that most of the community is supporting the library. We need to ensure that our ballot measure reflects that.
So
Do you think you could put a,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, but do you think you could just put a follow-up bug in his ear about that? If we think that
Yeah.
this is the moment writing that language, like,
Yeah.
now might be the time to reemphasize that if possible.
Yeah,
Of course.
to that point, because in the build-up to the discussion, there were numbers calculated that represented sales tax increases and property tax
Yes,
increases.
uh-huh.
Looking at it from afar, my assumption was, okay, well, somebody in their mind is linking that cost to this initiative. And
Okay, yeah.
in the weeds, in the background.
I'm
But
picturing it.
that information, I think, needs to make it to the ballot so that an individual looking at support for the library
Yes,
can say, gee, okay, my sales tax is gonna go up by
X amount, yeah.
X amount, my property tax is gonna go up by a couple mils,
Uh-huh,
and when I pay my taxes, I know that that is targeted for the library,
yes.
as
Yeah, no,
opposed
I
to just
understand
a
what
general
you're-
increase
Yes,
kind of
yeah, I
thing.
understand what you're getting at, so.
And I think the other
Yeah.
piece was that when we went and spoke to council the first time this fall, I guess, or late winter,
Uh-huh,
we said we were in favor of a progressive tax, but not a regressive tax.
uh-huh.
And is there a statement on what type of taxation this is gonna be?
Not
Florida?
yet,
It
not
was a
yet,
combination of both.
yeah,
Is a feasibility thing as to what they thought my interpretation as to what the city thought that they could achieve. It was a combination of property and sales.
but are you asking about how much of that collected would be going to the library? Is that what your question was?
My first question was that, yeah.
Yes.
Was, can we count on a dedicated percentage of whatever is
Uh-huh.
collected?
And that
My
has not
second
been
question
determined
is-
yet, yes.
Right, it sounds like both have been undetermined, but
Uh-huh.
my second question is this gonna be written as a progressive or regressive? It sounds like Mark is saying it's gonna be written as a hybrid.
Yes, that's the information
is,
I
yes.
have as of today is that's the way
Property
it's
and
going down.
sales tax. Is that, yeah.
That's my
So-
understanding.
I guess that's something the board should consider too then, because our initial statement was that we favored a progressive tax, you know. I guess maybe just for next time, something to think about, do we support any version of this, you know, or are we committed to that piece in addition to making sure that the funding level is secured?
So question about the process then. You all received that information, that language from the city, from city staff, and then is there discussion on it at that point, or do you just receive pretty much the final version?
No, so we'll receive it. I imagine that it will be coming back to us in a general session item.
Okay,
That's
that's what you're
typically
saying.
how
Okay.
that comes back to us. And that lends itself to more of a back and forth conversation. We're asking questions, we're providing input. It's not like when we're doing
Yeah.
first reading and second reading. So we haven't even gotten to that. We're like at 0.
Okay.
Or I think we're at before 0.
Right. I know you had mentioned that earlier, just making sure I
Uh-huh.
understanding. Okay, other comments on this one? It seems like we need to, from my understanding, read through what John has shared, make sure that we don't have questions about it, and then hopefully we'll be able to hear from you or from Jeff and the next time what the timing will be like when that first reading will be added to the agenda.
Do you, this is just another stray thought, do you think it would be possible for Jeff to get someone from legal or the appropriate person from the city to come in and speak to this board about what their rules and obligations would be?
Yeah, we can ask. Yeah.
In terms of further guidance and,
That's a good idea.
along with this documentation.
Yeah, that could really be helpful, especially if somebody could just come for the very beginnings part of the meeting. Okay, other thoughts before moving on? Great, so next agenda item, the action plan. And really, John, this is if there are any updates from you or any comments from the board on what was shared last month.
I don't have anything new. I had just some minor revisions from some staff input on it, which doesn't really change what I shared last month. So really, to me, unless anyone read, I don't remember if I sent it out in the packet or just shared it here, now that I think about it.
You sent it out when
If there was any direct feedback on it, but otherwise, my intention would be to kind of format that a little bit differently so that in coming months we can look through it and I can share in a given month what in the action plan we might have accomplished.
Like it.
Yeah, and you had mentioned a dashboard, and I think I have a good method to do for that that's a little more visual, that would be easier to see, like what's in process, what we're working on, what's done, kind of thing. So that's not hard to put together, which I can have by next month.
Great, thank you. Here it is.
So I handed it out.
Any other comments right now on the action plan?
I was very excited by it.
Yeah, I really appreciated sharing that with us and look forward to updates as you move through it as well. Okay, let's move on. Instant and no-share funds. So that came up last time. I only printed out 2 copies of this. Mark, I'm gonna probably have to lean on you a little bit. Wanted to hand this to you, John. Who emailed this to me? I can't remember. And then, sorry, Bill, am I just passing this back? So I went back in the board minutes, and in January of 2021, we as a board moved to put together a subcommittee to consider more flexible means of the use of the monies in these funds. And so that document was the updated result of that subcommittee's effort. And then in December of 21, the last time I saw mention of this, and I might not have looked fully, was that we had sent this information to the city attorney's office and we're waiting for an update. I don't know if that update ever came. Mark, is there anything that I'm missing that you're?
No, I think you're right on the, it was recommended in one of our discussions that maybe we needed legal to weigh in, so that caused the document to go to legal, but it just kind of sat there. So rather than continue to grind away at the city and the way they treat the library and the library's needs, we just says, well, as a group, this is what we agreed to. Until we get clarification from the city, we'll just follow this policy. And go from there. So that's where we're at.
Right, would it be worth it, do you think, at this time to check back in with legal or just to continue on until we hear otherwise that we have sent this off as we should? Anyone have an opinion on that?
To me, it's just another indication of the city's regard for the library and the fact that they bury this stuff and they don't get the attention they deserve. So, but having said that, it's up to you guys. I mean,
How long ago was it said?
In January of 21, December of 21, the last time it was mentioned said it had been sent off and they're waiting. So I'm assuming
Okay, somebody's
earlier,
forgotten about it.
that month. It's not definitely.
It wasn't last month.
Yeah, no.
Well, we had some hard words with the previous director regarding the city's response and encouraging, whatever initiative, whatever fund could be put under the initiative would appreciate it, and it just never went anywhere. So my thought was that the city wasn't interested in seeing it pass.
Yeah, we've done our due diligence and submitted it.
But
Which was this?
Yeah, but to the board, the members of the board at that time, there was a lot of money in these funds, and it wasn't a credible approach that we were using prior to putting this policy in place as to how to manage this in a responsible fashion. So that's why it was put to, can it be changed? Absolutely. But it does recognize, I think, this group's attempt to try and create some fiduciary, to manage their fiduciary responsibility in association with a lot of money, so.
Yeah, especially because of the stipulations, just kind of been used. But so I'm so glad we're going ahead and using those funds. So I'm kind of at a loss if we want to make any motion, that's the wrong word, if we want to make any movement with this at this point, or if we want to just hear proposals and ideas from John as they come up, and updates like you normally would. I'm curious if anyone else has opinions on this.
I mean, I am frustrated that nothing has happened in 2 years, but I also feel like we really need them to focus on this tax initiative. I don't know if pressing them on this right now is the right timing, at least until we see what they come up with, in case we need to go to bat over that. I guess I feel like that's a bigger, more pressing issue right now personally, but I agree that it's important that eventually we get this settled with them.
I'm happy to just kind of sit on this for a little longer and then just, send this back out to the city at some point. And maybe at that point, with the new director, we might want to readdress this proposed policy as well.
Do you think it might be prudent to figure out just how much is in there nowadays?
I think
Do
you have that information, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Epson fund is small. It's like $5,000 or so. It's not huge. Or maybe I'm mixing that up with another one because I'm still learning. But that one has, it's continued to be spent on, and it's typically gone towards some of our print reference collections from what I've looked at in some history. Mm-hmm. The Mosher Fund is really the bigger out there. That's a trust, an endowment that was set up that we can spend on the interest, and so little has been spent since it was put there that we can spend close to $600,000. And there's really no parameters. It's just to go towards library programs, which is very broad and beautiful. Because that's like, everything is a library program. So, so that's the one I've been more or less exploring, and have even, before I realized anything like this existed, I had already made some moves to use it for not huge. It's not like all 500,000. But the library for a long time has wanted a west side exterior book drop on the plaza. So it's like nominal coming out of this fund, but it helps because I don't really have it in my own supply budget.
Can I make a recommendation? We get an accurate accounting of where we're at now?
Yeah.
Because I think there's more than 5,000.
Oh, there is more. It's
No, in the other fund.
The other one probably is more. I think I probably shouldn't have said that amount. I think that's a different library fund. There's a couple other funds there that are dedicated library funds.
So maybe it's like a raffle.
Yeah, well, you know, it's just money. But the Epson is different.
I admire your take charge attitude.
It's not anywhere near the Mosher Fund. That was the new one to me that I learned about, which I feel
surprise.
like. Well, it was a pleasant surprise, but you know, there are some things that I think that could really benefit the library that we don't have. We should use it. That's what it's there for. So I can gather this by next meeting and give a rundown of the different funds and what the current
Yeah, I don't
balance
think you have
is.
to hit the exact
And what we're
penny,
saying.
although I believe
But
Jim Golden probably knows the exact
No,
penny.
and I haven't. I mean, I have reports and I can find the information. So
That'd be great if you don't mind providing that information. And then, sounds like the book drop, if you wouldn't also mind sharing some of the other ideas, or movements that
there
you
were
have.
basically two
Right.
that I had identified. That one is kind of sort of in process in the sense that because it's considered capital in some sense, it'll end up in council's hands to approve spending that. And it's about $5,000. It's not like, but I did the work of talking with the city project manager and Parks, because Parks is responsible for the grounds, to make sure we could like physically install a book drop on the concrete out there. So that's sort of in the works. And then the other bigger item I had in mind with this, which I will actually put into the budget process, but I will tag it to come from this fund, which would be to buy the library its own outreach van.
Okay, so
That's a bigger ticket item.
none of what I'm about to say is a showstopper, but one understanding, I guess, regardless of what this group says, it's still what our approval still needs to go to the mayor for the mayor to sign the check. So the city has the ultimate approval on all this.
Yeah.
And then I guess secondly, if I can just remember what just jumped out of my head. This topic of using the fund versus the city adequately funding the library through the budgetary process was a big bugaboo with the group, because we thought, not all of us, but there's a certain rainy day characteristic to the funds. You know, you just don't want to squander them. And there was a concern that if they were the go-to source of funding, kind of like the Friends, then the city never steps up and adequately budgets the library. So there was reluctance to just grab the money out of here, you know.
Right.
You understand.
I
So
kind
that
of
was
see
the
that.
concern, and
Yeah.
that's another reason for putting the policy together, was to make sure that it just didn't go away.
Yeah, I get that, and you know, so far these two things, the book drop I could argue out of a general fund purchase, and that could probably be done, but the van is a different thing to me. In the sense that I don't think spending out of that fund to get a vehicle to support outreach says anything about support from the library from the city standpoint. In my mind, it's not a normal purchase.
Well, I think that's to me, that's a city obligation. But even if you argued that wasn't a city obligation, as I think I previously mentioned, the last time this thing came up, the Friends were willing to pony up half. And the city then had to pony up half. But that was the way it was looked at that time, but that doesn't mean that that's the only way
Right.
of looking at it. But the Friends were willing to do that, and they had the money to do that. And then it got into like operating issues and how do we staff it? And, you know, what do we put in it, and you know, what are the collections like, and do we have the electronics to do this intelligent?
Yeah, well, that's where I think
dissolved and all that.
I think that's where you need a mix. It's one thing to use the fund to acquire the thing, but it's the ongoing support. I wouldn't expect to draw that from the fund every year.
Or
Or anywhere
or
else.
the Friends, I guess.
Yeah, no, that has to be, in my mind, supported through our own budget.
Other comments or questions on this agenda item before we move on? Right. Thanks for giving us a little more info about those numbers.
Yeah, I'll come back to that.
Right, report information items. If there's anything, John, that you have first.
Are we director report?
Yep.
Okay. So, well, I first of all, what I won't have this month is programming highlights, just the timing of this meeting coming up. I didn't give my staff enough time to give me their stuff. So I'll kind of combine that next month. But that's hopefully okay. The other item I wanted to talk about in my report was actually budget related, because we're in the budget process now.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to, share with the board what kind of high level I get, well, maybe detailed level, but what I am intending to put. I have a lot of budget requests for the library. Oh, I should share this for Catherine. Hang on a second.
Thought I had a lot of tabs up.
Oh, no, you can't beat me. Just a second, Catherine.
I'm looking at like my 3 browsers.
Yeah, my 3 browsers,
Yeah,
and
that's
then I
so
have little folders in each of them, so it extends.
I'm kind of sharing you just notes I've taken here, but it'll give you an idea of what I think is essential in our budget request. That my highest priority is additional outreach staff.
Did a little bit. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
You can see Catherine? Okay. So, currently we have Lillian. Sometime you'll meet her here. She's certainly someone I'll bring in here to share about outreach, but she was hired just about a year ago, has done amazing work, but this has grown into where we really need a department, and she needs staff to really function. It's almost pointless to have a vehicle that no one has time to go drive. Right, so it all kind of comes together for me, and it's a really critical service to be out there. It doesn't matter if we build 1, 2, or 3 libraries. We still need outreach. We still need to get out there. It's just such an important service for libraries. So that's one of it. With Lillian being the outreach, I feel like if she has staff, she needs to be at a manager level in order to do that. And then I'll kind of move down here, and you can certainly ask questions. We operate, as many departments here, with sort of this temp wages, it's like a bucket. I just call it a bucket of money that a lot of staff get paid from. Now, we as the library will hire people and say, we know you're working 20 hours a week or whatever it is, but it comes out of this temp wages bucket. But it's so precise that we have very little flexibility if we need staff to work maybe a few extra hours to go to Cinco de Mayo, for example, which is a great example of just this Saturday where I was there and it was packed. Or other events, just things where they can actually work extra hours and we can afford to pay them to do it. Or to have on-call subs. It's like we're big enough now, we should be able to do this, and this is where this would come from. So I want this to be not so precise. It may not get spent down every year, but we need to have that capacity. in my opinion. So that'll be going in there. We have a computer lab coordinator that's 3/4 time. She really should just be full-time. Collections is a big thing for me. So one of the things we are introducing is pre-processing, and I don't know if we've talked about that, but we're in transition now where a lot of our materials, this is the first library I've ever been that doesn't do this, where when we order from our book vendors, the materials come in shelf ready, right? They come in and all you have to do is scan the barcode, it goes on the shelf. At Longmont, they come in and we have to put on the jacket covers and put all the labeling on, and we get backlogs of stuff. So we're changing that, but there's a cost to it. So we need to account for that, and we estimated about an additional $60,000 just to cover that pre-processing. It's so worth it. It also will relieve time from staff that are doing this to do other things, i.e. outreach. But also down the road over time, we can transition them into other roles in the library where they're not needed in this role. So no one loses jobs, but what are our new priorities, basically, is the way I see that. So. But we also just need a budget increase. This gets into feasibility study. When you go into preferred level of service, we don't buy enough collections for a library that serves a population of this size. And that's true for electronic collections too. We're way underneath. What we spend per capita is near the bottom of a library that serves 100,000 people in the state. And I don't know that the city really wants to be in that category, which is what I will write in my budget proposal.
Good, I'm glad.
You know, it's like that logic, like if you like children, then you'll vote for the library.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
it's all self-purpose. Anyway, professional development I'm an advocate for, and we have a real minimal budget for this. We have no opportunity to send staff to conferences and for ongoing professional development. It's very, very low. This is kind of nominal, but uniforms, I'm a real big advocate for this. I went ahead and just spent some money this year to get t-shirts so that we look like we're a unified organization. We're an outreach. In fact, volunteers have some now. So you're welcome. But but that should be ongoing. You come in, you got hired in, you get your onboarding, and this is what you do. And also here, you can have a t-shirt, a polo, a vest, what do you do?
It's a great
And-
move too.
Yeah, and sorry. Oh, you have one, Catherine. Yeah. Next time we see you, we'll get you your t-shirt.
Oh.
Tracy has it sitting right in front of her. Yeah. Okay. Where am I at? So that library app. This is something I would like to introduce. This would be an ongoing cost, but something that a lot of libraries have, and we introduced this in my last job that I was at, which is it's an app that does common things. Like it's just a nice interface to search the catalog, but there's add-on features like self-checkout and things that I think are real add-on things for patrons that they've come to expect from other industries like retail. So why not us? And the technology's there. It's just whether we can pay for it.
Is there one that you really like?
There's a few I like. There's one that truly will work that I don't like as much as others, if that makes sense.
With the chat
I'm not crazy about the interface of it, but
Okay.
the functionality works because it integrates really well with our ILS. So it doesn't fail.
Are y'all upgrading the ILS anytime soon?
There's no plans to
Okay.
change it, if
Okay.
that's what you mean, but
Yeah.
we go through standard upgrades when there's new
Okay.
versions.
That no change.
Yeah.
With the app, with also text, I forget if it's reference or reader's advisory. The text reader's advisory, would that also be able to go through the app, or would that continue?
We have text to librarian already.
Would
Would it integrate with this? That's a good question.
Okay. That sounds great.
Yeah. In fact, that's a really good question because the inter-app integration is huge. I mean, one of the great things about an app that a mobile site won't quite do right is things like, the location-based services, right? There's a lot of things you could do if the technology is there. So like someone's nearby and you could send a push notification like, oh, there's a program at the library happening near you. I mean, think about the stuff that you might get. It depends on you sign up for or not. Or, you know, there's privacy issues around that with libraries, but if it's opt-in, then you're pretty clear. Programming budget, this isn't necessarily in priority order, but if it was, this would be right under outreach staff. This is where we rely 100% on the Friends, which we are forever grateful for. There is no reason why a library this size should function and not be able to support our own programming.
That's right.
What the Friends should support is big events, right?
Yes.
It's not that takes away the need for Friends support. That's where you use that kind of generosity to bring in big authors and really get community events going for the library. And so, but day-to-day programming, whether it's buying crafts for a story time or, or other things, we need to have our own budget for this, including bringing in presenters, not at a grand author level scale, but other guest speakers or things that can come speak that would, and some of them are very nominal fees, but we need to be able to support that. So,
And it's nice that you're not asking staff, like teachers, we have to.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah.
Bringing in my own Kleenex.
As a corollary to that, the Friends ended up being asked to write the contracts on the authors, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it easier in the sense.
Because of the red tape within the city.
Yeah.
To get it done.
Yeah, because they have a city standard. And that would probably change that if we were to hire them ourselves and not through the Friends, but we could probably still find a way to do it, even if the library's funding it. But I don't know. I mean, that's getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, right.
In general, we should be able to support that. That's, to me, standard library operating. I put storefront library here because whether there's the ballot initiative or not, this is still a separate item to me. One branch is great, but we still need something else. So I don't want to, and part of this for me putting it in the budget is to just not lose sight of the fact that we need an additional space, whether it comes through a voter approved initiative or not.
This is another one of my stray thoughts, but when we sat through the presentation to council about the YMCA in their complex, it seemed like they had some sort of library feature.
Yeah, I know nothing. That was the first time I saw it.
Curious
Yeah.
if that.
No.
So one could be.
I leaned over to
like-
Jeff, I'm like, library?
So I think there was this
Good to know.
space that could possibly be daycare or
Yeah.
a library front. The other one, and I don't know if you know about this, John, the Hover, near Hover Crossing.
I do, yeah.
Okay, so where that, I guess the LHA.
It's the affordable housing
the
project.
affordable housing project, there is a section where we could possibly use some space in there for a storefront library.
Yep.
I like that idea. One, it's in my ward, so
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
It's
And
in
the
a
other
much
one-
needed area.
It's in a much needed area in northwest side of town where there isn't a whole lot.
Yeah, and that is, and I've been in some conversations about that, and I haven't heard anything, and I just don't know where that stands. But I would love for that to come through because they
Yes.
very much, that group has very much advocated for a library, and that would be like a retail storefront type of thing.
Yes.
And in fact,
With
they've
the
asked
apartments on top.
as much as what I thought that could look like. I'm like, well, it could be a staff library, it could be self-service, there's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, I'm thinking of what the North Boulder
Yeah, I
branch
was just
used to
thinking
look
that.
like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which,
Or is it
yeah.
a mixed use?
Yep, it was.
Era
Yeah.
Huh.
block, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, the vision of this project is that a library, but then like a youth, a childhood
Child
kind
care
of
center
childcare,
or, yes.
like next door.
And I think there was, my understanding is because of how the funds would be allocated to build that, to support that daycare center would really be for the residents of that.
Correct. That's the way I understand it.
However, if we did something that is a storefront library, and it sounded like there was room for both. But the storefront library would be open, it would be a public facility, so it would be open for any resident.
That's great.
the van's on here again, but that'll be put in. I wanted it as a part of the budget process because it gets vetted through fleet, and then you know everyone has. Well, this is what it'll cost. It'll get costed out appropriately, so that I'll know. But I will indicate this is coming from that Mosher fund in my budget request because I don't want it denied. Well, that's not really the reason. Partially the reason. I mean, it's going to be a big cost, so I don't want that to overweigh other things in here. To be honest, that I can't pay through that Mosher fund, but this I can. That's my logic. BTCAT it's a cataloging tool that I guess has been explored here before I was here, and it would streamline a lot. It kind of goes along with pre-processing in a sense, as far as our library database and accuracy of records and making that much easier to work with and better and faster as far as having materials ready and better searchable. So it's probably worth the cost. And then this is another staff person that is on here. And I have some other staffing to consider that are not on here that I may want to put in here, but this is a person that it's sort of a special category and almost won't cost anything to do. But it needs to be in the process. So, but that's kind of the long and short of it. I mean, I have a few other things to work through, but I'm starting to create that now. That's great. I would say the biggest things are the staffing for outreach, programming budget. Yeah, I mean, of course it's everything. And then probably collections.
So you have one item in there, which I think is just professional development training. Does the city offer a program to its employees where, if they want to go to get a degree, get an advanced degree or whatever, they can meet those criteria through the city and the city pays for that?
There is some form of a tuition reimbursement program.
There is.
That's
already.
as much as I know. And I
But
don't
I
know
don't
much.
think it covers everything.
Not everything, but
Yeah.
if it's, but like I don't know a lot of details, but I have an employee here that's currently in a library science program, and in fact I
Okay.
just signed some papers to get some tuition reimbursement.
Great.
So there's a little bit there from the city in that sense and support.
Well, thanks so much, John. I am
Yeah.
cognizant of the time right
Yeah.
now, but I also want to ask, I really want city to know our support, if we have support, for these budget requests. And so I'm curious if this month is the time to share any messages of support, or next month, kind of like the timing. Because I do think that I was just highlighting what you were saying was the highest priority stuff, and it just seems so important to me.
Yeah.
So I really want to make sure and throw to what we have behind this, if the other board members are in agreement. Can you remind me the timing of when everything happens?
Yeah, it's right now. I think
Okay.
the 26th officially. By the time this board meets again, it will be submitted.
Okay, so then what do the other board members think about a communication to city just sharing support behind this list and really specifically calling out outreach support, programming, budget, collections, and pre-processing seem to be some of the ones that are most important to call out. I don't know if we need a formal motion for that, but I'd be happy just to email city council members sharing that we are in support of these budget requests. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, I think I do have to make a motion for that. So I move that the board sends city council a statement of support behind the budget request for the 23-24 year.
I second.
Thanks. All in favor? Okay, great. I will send an email to council then.
Could you also include city manager
Yes.
and Jeff and Jeff's, what is it?
Joni Marsh.
Joni Marsh.
And
Okay,
Cynthia
so it's
and
basically-
Catherine, I'll answer that just one second. But Cynthia, I can email you. I think it would help if I know I just barfed out a bunch of stuff. But I think if I summarize it for you a little bit and give you some context of where I'm coming from. That'll help.
That'd be great.
And then Catherine is tailored to the current. It's getting towards the preferred level. That's the way I see it, and that's some of how I will couch some of this, is that it's a step towards in that direction. So certainly preferred level of service would include our own programming budget and collections that support a population of this size, blah, blah, blah. Does that answer that?
Yeah, thank you, it does. And I guess, again, it's not that I don't want to support this budget. I 100% want you to have this budget. I just don't want them to think that we're satisfied with this if it's not the preferred level that you actually want. So I'm just putting that out there.
Right, I agree. And I think in my justification in the budget processing, like the literal where I write up why I need this money, it will indicate that getting towards a preferred level of service. So like this is, this isn't the 1 year and the end of it and then we're at preferred.
Heather, that's a great point. And when we communicate with council as a board as well, we can also share that we are supportive of this as a step towards the preferred level of service.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know what the voter initiative dollars came in at, so you're not underselling yourself, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Wait, well, John, is there anything else you had under your director's report for this month?
Nope.
Let's move on, see how quickly we can do. And I think next we have Friends.
Really quick.
Great.
We had our last meeting was a lively one. I think there were all manner of topics that we covered, but essentially we're in full gear preparation for the book sale that starts on Wednesday. We have tweaked a couple of things about the sale. I think they're just laying things out differently this time, but to me the most notable distinction is the move away from a separate teacher education discount. And I am anticipating that there's going to be some freak out because we didn't get the word out. So it's not going anywhere. However, we're not calling it a separate teacher education like window of time where you show up and you fill your bag for $5 and we have that awkward conversation where you pull out your wallet and you try and find your school ID and it's like, no, you're good. You're just gonna take my word for it? Yeah. Like why would you? It's fine. So now we're just combining and everyone gets to fill a bag for $5 on Saturday. And I believe it's still a window. I think it's 1 to 5, but we're not asking for anybody's credentials. We're not, sitting in judgment of whether you qualify as an educator because you do this thing or that thing versus something else. And I think it's a good move in streamlining what we do, but gosh, I'm expecting a lot of people to ask about it. Everyone's getting the same thing that they've always gotten. The other one thing, I'm really in support of John and in support of this move to gradually have the library support its own programming. I am very slowly and gently wanting to invite the Friends, at least the members of the Friends board, to imagine what that organization would do if they were not responsible for 100% of the library's programming. What else would you do? No matter how close or distant the future, there will come a time where the Friends may need to redefine its mission. And I love the idea of bigger events and bringing in people and building community. I have a background in development and
fundraising for operations is something you want to move away from as soon as possible. So I don't think it's a strong position for the library to be in, where we rely exclusively on a group of volunteers to provide essential services to our community. So that's a very slow wheel that I hope will start turning, but for right now, it's sales, sales, sales. I'm impressed with how much we bring in. And I say we, but they. How much they bring in with all of the different things that they do to generate revenue. And I think that if we were to turn that in another direction, it could be quite powerful. I also told them all about the meeting and said,
Do you see any change in your attitude towards the foundation? Taking a role in the building of foundation?
is this on the record? Yes. Not that specifically, no.
Okay. They're still thinking about it.
I will say that it does not always feel like a really unified group. And I would say that to their faces. I'm still trying to figure out the dynamics in that room. Their passion for the library and supporting the library in any possible way seems to be the glue that holds them together, but the minutiae or the flavors of how they should do that and what they should do, I think there is a large diversity of opinion there.
You'll work in a good shape.
I'm so glad we have a dedicated Friends liaison, so thank you for taking on that role, and I know you had volunteered as backup for that, so thanks to y'all.
I'll say one more thing that I would like to explore is I'm not aware that there's any strong connection with other Friends organizations or some of the arms of organizations such as ALA that have they exist to support boards like ours. They exist to support foundations and Friends organizations. And I think opening those doors and getting that fresh air in and seeing what other libraries, how they're innovating, how they're meeting the challenges of our times now, would be really beneficial for that group. So that's another thing that I would like to bring to them.
You know, when we were looking for people to participate in a feasibility study, there was an outfit out of, I think it was Minnesota, that was an adjunct of a Friends group that specifically just did that they would go in and support studies for libraries looking to make a case before their governments. It was fascinating, but I mean, it was an interesting spin on a different organizational construct. So I just found that fascinating.
I'm sure you might be aware of this too, but I was just looking, I thought I'd seen this before. ALA does have some resources for Friends group, but it looks like the Colorado Association of Libraries has a trustees and Friends division.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's really good staff there.
Okay.
And I forget which, but one of them puts out a lot of webinars and things on that, like how to move your library forward and how to tease apart certain legislative things that may be impacting your library. And it's difficult and or expensive to register for those things without having a membership.
Wait, let's, just for time's sake, I'm gonna move us along, even though I think that's an important question to consider later. What are ways that we could do that? Anything else? You, Jamie?
That's it. Thank you for letting me add that aspect.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm glad you did. And now, city council.
Okay, so there were a few things I was gonna mention the why, and so I was able to interject some of the updates throughout the meeting. But a couple of things. One, I'd like to inform you all about the youth summit. So if you wanted to take a couple, so this is, again, the stadium dollars. It was transferred over to Children's, Youth, and Families. So their division will be hosting a youth summit. They do this every year, their youth summit, but they will be adding time for kids 10 through 18 to put in their feedback and what they would like to see that money allocated for. So it would be guided by our youth to really determine how that money would be spent, since it was supposed to be money that's supposed to be allocated for youth. So I will be in attendance, but if you wanted to share this with your networks, they can scan the QR code, or if you wanted to take an extra one as well to hand out to those you know in the area. The other one is today, and actually I still feel it. We were in the sugar mill today, so we did a tour with the property owner of the actual sugar mill site, and planning staff. Jody March was there. Glenn, help me with his last name. What's his last name? Glenn's last name. I can't remember.
Glenn or Ben?
Glenn. Out of our planning and zoning. Ben Nimwigin, I think, yeah. Always gets me tongue-tied. But anyway, so he was out there, and a couple of developers. So we were out there touring the site and looking at potential for that area. And the goal is really to preserve as much of that facility for historical purpose as possible. But there's so many opportunities, using some space. There's one giant shelter space, I don't know if it's that big gray building that you see. It's huge. It's almost like a giant warehouse. A possible site for a performing arts, so different ways that we could tap into that space, and even having one of a space there for a children's library or something specific in things that we need in our community, as well as we're working with getting permanently affordable or attainable homes for sale in that area, and using those dollars to kind of leverage and be able to fund public spaces and facilities in those. So it was really exciting to see that there's going to be movement in there. Right now it's just going to be a lot of abatement. And I had my mask on and my shield, and it's very dusty. So I still feel all scratchy. But so it's very exciting. I feel like we're in the next few years we're going to see some movement in that area. And there's a lot of potential for different, the museum, the library, parks to be able to tap in and use that space as well. So, and we're hoping to be able to see that come to fruition. So, yeah, I'll just cut it.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, moving on, library board comments.
Just real quick for next meeting, I'm not sure if that's Juneteenth, but if it is, we should probably maybe consider moving it to a different day.
That's the way when I just put in the chat.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're closed, aren't we?
Yeah, probably. Thanks.
What is
Yes, because it is a
Yeah.
national holiday.
I'm on the 26th. We could scoot back 1 week and do June 12th. I'm also available the 20th. If we wanted to move it a day later.
I can do either of those.
So the 20th, it's
Oh, that's the
city council.
council.
We might be, I don't know, because I know we have CML, the Colorado Municipal League.
Right.
So then I'd be out of town for that.
Everything hinges on Mark's availability because it's his last meeting.
That's a good point, Catherine.
Uh-huh.
I'd love to have you part.
Mark's like, I'm hooked.
Very busy. Just pick a day, we'll see what works out.
How does the 12th work for you, Mark?
Right now, the 12th is dandy.
How about for everyone else, June 12th? Great. John?
Actually makes it a month from now.
Yeah, that's perfect. Great, let's go ahead and move that then to June 12th. Thank you both for doing that. Okay, well with that, I'm gonna go ahead and close this meeting at 9:10.